Hey guys and gals, friends of YouTube, Love to Fly Helis here, and we are back for part 2 of the build on the Sig Somethin Extra. Got the fuselage and the tail section all out. The manual actually calls the next step is the landing gear, but I'm going to wait and put the landing gear on later, and I'll explain why. It's easier when you're mounting your servos and stuff in here. You can lay your fuselage flat on your table. If your landing gear's on here, and it's hard to get it to stay at an angle where you want it if you're looking in here sideways or whatever. But I like to leave my landing gear off for a little while longer until I get this stuff in. As I explained in part 1, you need to go over your covering. Now I've already done all this on the fuselage. Fuselage wasn't bad at all. But you do need to go over your covering. Almost every seam on this, on the control surfaces, elevator, rudder, stab, and horizontal, vertical, and everything was the seams were loose everywhere. I mean, this thing. Don't get me wrong, Sig is generally a high quality kit. And the frame seems to be built really well and looks to be plenty of glue in all the joints and everything, but their covering job I'm disappointed in. I really am. Matter of fact, I'm going to send them an email nicely. You can complain about stuff like this, but try to do it nicely. Being hateful and nasty to them is not going to get you anywhere. And chances are good this may not help, but I have 2 other friends that bought this same plane. We all bought them about a year ago. Neither one of them have built theirs yet, and same exact thing. The covering is terrible. The seams are all loose all the way around it. I cannot get these little wrinkles out right here. I did tighten up the rest of it, but every seam on this was starting to peel up. So be sure and go over your covering with a trim seal iron on all your seams along the edge here. I've got a couple places here I missed. I got to go back and do. All the way around where your canopy fits. Up in the front of your fuselage, around where the engine's going. I'm putting a cowl on mine. You have the option of doing it with or without, but I'm going to put the cowl. But still, make sure all these seams are good and tight. Every one of those were loose and starting to peel up. Where your trim colors are on top of your base color, the edges of that was loose everywhere. So I was pretty disappointed in the covering job on this, and I thought maybe I just got a kind of a fluke and I got a bad one. You know, sometimes you do get one that wrinkled covering stuff, but I talked to both my friends last night and both of them said theirs was exactly the same way. Wrinkled covers was wrinkled like terrible, and all the seams were loose, and they're having to try to go over all theirs and tighten it up and everything too. So you can go back to part 1 and I show you how to do this. You need, if you don't have access to a heating iron or a trim, this is a trim seal iron, the heating iron is bigger. Try to find someone in your club or nearby you that has built and has these tools to help you, because if you try to fly this right out of the box, you're going to have covering start to peel up everywhere on it, probably the first couple flights. So if you don't have these tools, buy them, or if you can't buy them, then try to find somebody in your club maybe nearby that can help you seal this stuff down before you build it. Anyway, now we've got the fuselage pretty much all ready. A couple little spots there I missed, and I'll go back and do that. Now we have the horizontal stab and the elevator ready to hinge. Matter of fact, I've already hinged them, put my pins in. There again, we'll show you on the rudder, but you can see how to do all this in part 1. I'm trying to avoid any more length than I can. It's so hard to keep these under an hour to get anything done at all. So I'm trying to avoid going over the same exact steps. This is exactly like you did the ailerons, and if you watch part 1 of the build, I'll explain in there exactly how to do all this. So trying to keep from wasting a whole lot of time on this. Now we've got this in place. We're going to pull the pins out and very gently, and we're going to see these hinges just like we did the ailerons on the first part. Oh God, the lid is stuck on this thing. I bet it's plugged up too. Let me get my big pin out again. Well, that's the only bad thing about CA glue. It plugs up so easy. You can't keep it from plugging up in that tip for whatever reason. test spot here. Yep, we got it. Alright, let's get a tip out. I use these long, skinny tips you can get at your hobby store. Now, just like we did the aileron, we're going to slightly bend this back. We're going to put 6 to 7 drops, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, on each hinge. Now, on your elevator and stab, there's 3 on each side. So there's 3 here and 3 on the other side. So be sure you get all 6 of them in there. Let that glue wick down in there. Make sure your control surface stays pushed up tight. You don't want any gaps in this. You get too big a gap, you're going to get some flutter, and that can damage your plane or cause it to just come apart in the air. So you want these control surfaces, as I explained on the ailerons, as tight as you can. They're beveled here, so they will bend. You don't have to have a big space between them. A lot of people think you do, but you don't. Alright, we did the top side. Now we're going to turn it over and do the same thing on the bottom. And this is a repeat of the ailerons, but I will go ahead and do this for you. And 4, 5, 6. If you drop CA on your covering, if you hurry, you can get it off real quick with your finger or a little paper towel, but it's best to keep a bottle of debonder nearby, and that stuff works great. If you get it on here, you can put a little on a paper towel and it'll wipe it right off and keep your covering clean. Okay, we're going to set that aside for just a minute. We're going to wait to do the rudder until after I mount the horizontal stab and the vertical fin. We'll put this on after that. There's 2 of the hinges on it go in, will mount actually in the vertical fin. The bottom hinge down here will actually go in the back of the fuselage. Now I noticed there's not a hole in the covering. They forgot to slit it, so we're going to set this up here where it should go. It should be there to there. And right in the center of this, we're going to cut a groove. Oops, hope you can see this. Get my arms out of the way here. Anyway, right there in the center where that hinge lines up, we're going to make sure there should be a hole in it. Feels like there might be. But just as straight as you can, stick your razor knife in there, kind of widen that out so your hinge will go in it when you get ready to put that rudder on there. Okay, now, alright, like I said, we're going to hold off and wait to do this. I'm going to lay this over here so the pins don't get stuck in anything. This should be pretty dry. We'll flex it, make sure it flexes good. Now, at this point, we're ready to glue this on. Now, you can see where I pulled some of my covering loose right there. I went over it with a trim seal, but when I was using my heat gun, it still pulled the edge of that back a little bit. But I mean, this thing, it was wrinkled bad. It was terrible. But I got most of it out. But anyway, a lot of ARF kits, you have to trim this piece off. They've already done that for you. And the bottom of the horizontal vertical fin is also cleared for you. So you want to glue wood to wood. Don't ever glue anything to top of covering. Your covering will pull loose, and then your piece will too. Alright, now what we're going to do is center this up. We're going to take a couple of these pins. You can make a mark right here on the tail end of it, right in the center. Find my marker. What did I do with it? There it is. We're going to make a little mark in the center, and then we're going to center this with the center of the fuselage and back here on the back as well. Now you can measure across there and see right where your center line is. I've got that one already marked. So we're going to take a pin and stick down through that into the fuselage on the front side and the back side toward the rear of the plane. Okay, Now that'll kind of hold that in place so we don't move it around. Alright, this is pretty important. You want to make sure your distance from the fuselage out to this tip is equal on each side. And then you want to make sure that this is square with the front of the plane. Now a lot of instructions will show you to mount the wings and measure from the tips of the wings. Other books will show you to stick a pin in the center of the fuselage. I hate that method. It does not work. That pin wiggles. It will throw you off every time. I would recommend never using that. What I like to use, I've got a metal 3-foot yardstick. And then right here, let me get this around here. Right here where the canopy goes, this is square. So if you measure to the corner, each side of that back to your horizontal, in other words, what I'm going to do is I'm going to butt the corner of this right up to that on each side and measure back to the corner of my horizontal. And that usually gets it really square. So first we want to see about how far out we are. And let's see, let me get it, inches. It is just 9 5/8. Let's see what this side looks like. We are at 9 5/8. We're perfect on our width. So I got my center line marked good. Now what we want to do is make sure this is not yawed one way or the other. So we're going to take and put the corner of our yardstick up there where the canopy goes. And we're going to measure to this tip. And I've got 31 1/8 to the very front corner of this. So now we're going to put it on this side. Right on the money. Man, that's the first time I think I've ever done that. Generally you're off just a little bit, so you have to pull one pin out and kind of twist this to one side or the other a little bit, but I come out perfect the first time on this. Cannot believe that. So where I've got my marks there, I'm going to go ahead and mark the fuselage where I had that centered. And now what we'll do is we'll mix the glue. This is kind of time consuming because you have to glue the horizontal on first, let that dry. Then you have to glue the vertical fin on, let that dry. Then we can come back and put our rudder in. So I'm going to pull these pins up just a little bit. Okay. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to get me some paper towels. You want to keep some paper towels handy and some denatured alcohol, and that will clean off excess. When you smash that on there, glue's going to run out underneath here, and we're going to wipe that down. Let me go get a couple towels and I'll be right back. Okay. I realized my paper towel holder's empty. I went to steal some of my wife's out of the kitchen, and hers, she just emptied them too. She's going to have to get some when we go to town tomorrow. But anyway, I got some Kleenexes. I think that'll work too just as well. And I've folded these up to a little square. And the reason I do that is so I can use a couple of these edges, and then I can fold this back the other direction and use the other side and get several uses out of it. Got my denatured alcohol in my little squirt bottle. So now what we got to do, we're going to use 30-minute epoxy on this because you want it really strong for one thing. And second, you need the working time. 5-minute, you're liable to, if you need to square it up while your glue's on there, you're liable to get it off, you know, and it start drying on you before you get it set good. So let me get a mixing stick. And I like, my favorite is the Zap brand. I get mine at Tower Hobbies. I'm not sure who all carries it. I'm sure you can get it about anywhere. But this Zap brand, it lasts forever. It doesn't, the resin doesn't crystallize, and it doesn't turn yellow over time. It stays clear. So it's only about $1 more than your other name brands, but this stuff works really, really well. And it stays nice and clean and clear. I used to use the Great Plains brand, and it used to crystallize on me all the time. And I'd have to get a bowl of hot water and thaw it out, or, you know, reheat it and soften it. So I haven't had any problems since my friend told me about the Zap brand. Come on, come out of there. Yeah, we're coming. Alright, we want even amounts. This, so I'm going to squeeze them both together. It's not going to take just a ton, 'cause, I mean, it's a little bit of a larger surface, but not that big. So we'll mix about that much. Thoroughly mix this. I like to roll mine over back and forth a couple times and then really mix it. After it's mixed really good, it will almost turn, instead of clear, both pieces being clear, it'll almost be a white milky looking color. Be sure you mix your epoxy very well. Okay, now we're going to put, get my camera up here. We're going to put some on here, and we're going to put it on real evenly. Flatten that out good. Make sure every speck of the wood is covered with this. And what little runs off on the side, don't worry about it. Your Kleenex and denatured alcohol will take that off. Now we're taking off a whole lot of excess here. We don't want it just really squishing out everywhere. Okay, now I'm going to coat a thin layer on the bottom of this as well, just to be sure that everything fills in. Every little speck of wood is covered. Now we want to get the front side of this too, where they've got the covering off. So a little bit on there. Now, this one's a little harder to get to. We'll rake that toward the back. Try not to get it off on your covering. It won't hurt if it gets right on the edge of it, because it will clean off. But we want to try to get this as level as we can, as smooth, and where it doesn't squish out everywhere all over your plane. Okay, get the excess off of there, and then I'm going to take this, do that right there. Okay, we got both sides coated. A little dry spot there. Alright, now I've got my marks on here. You want to move this out of the way before you lay your arm in it. We're going to real gently scoot that up there. Get our marks lined up. Our pin should go right back in the hole. Okay, now we're going to take our ruler. Well, first we're going to look under here. Okay, it doesn't look like a whole lot of glue come out of there, just a little bit on this side. So what I'm going to do is take my alcohol, squirt it along one edge there. We're going to go over here real gently and just wipe that off. None on this side. Now, we got plenty of working time. We're going to measure this. Make sure. $31.8. $31.8. We're perfect. Okay, now what I want to do is, and I should have got something before I sit down here. I'm going to take a pair of needle nose, and I'm going to very gently pull my pins out. We do not want to move this stab, but I've got lines marked on it too also. So now what we're going to have to do, gosh, should have got me weight. Alright, we're going to center this box on this. If I can get it to where it will. I don't know if that's going to work or not. I moved it. Okay. Need to keep pressure on this so it glues good and solid to the bottom, and I may have to sit here and hold this little dude. So I'm going to have to recheck since I wiggled it. Try to do that one-handed if I can. Okay, go back. Here we are, perfect. Okay. Boy, 30 minutes is a long time to hold this, but this thing is rocking so bad I don't want it to tip with that weight on it. Don't know. There's no way to get a clamp around it either real well. Maybe. Let me see. You can't have enough clamps. These kind here are real handy. They extend quite a ways. So let's see what we can do. We're getting that underneath there. Yeah, I just moved it again. That ain't gonna work either. I guess I'm gonna have to sit here and hold this. Wow, that's gonna be a little while. Alright, let me double check it again. We're right on the money right there where my marks are. That's one reason you want to mark it. That way if it slips on you, you can get it right back where it goes. Okay, I can't figure out a way to weight this, so I'm going to sit here and hold pressure on this, and we'll turn the camera off and I'll be back when it's done. Okay, back for just a second. I was able to manage to get my clamps on here very carefully and crank them down, and I kept my marks. And I double checked my tips and measured, and they're still good. So we've got pressure on that now. So that was a little bit tricky to get those clamps on there without moving it, but I did manage to finally do it. So we're going to let that dry, and then we'll be right back and put the vertical fin on. Okay guys, the glue has set about 45 minutes. It's 30 minutes epoxy, so it's pretty solid. It'll totally cure in 24 hours. But one thing I forgot to mention earlier also is level. If you can set your plane, this one has a flat bottom on the fuselage, so you can set it on a level table, and you can measure from the table up to the edge of your wing and make sure it is the same. And you can kind of look down it like this too and eyeball it. If it leans to one side or the other, then you need to take the flat surface on the fuselage and take a sanding block kind of like this, try to keep it as level as you can, and sand that, but angle it the direction you need to go to get this level. So you want to be sure and check that. I had already checked mine, but I just forgot to mention it earlier. I have had a few kits that come out that were off and the stab would lean to one side. If it's a fuselage type that has a hole cut out where this slides in, some of those do, the stab will slide in there, and then you put your elevators on with your hinges. But you can take, generally you can get inside that with this lip on this in there and sand those like that. But make sure your stab is level with your fuselage and where your front main wing is going to be. And I forgot to tell you to do that. Okay, on the vertical fin, you also want to make sure it's level and square and not lean to one side. One way you can do that is, let me get this set on here just right. You can hold it on your flat surface, and you can take this dilly, I forget what it's called, an angle, like a 90-degree angle. Anyway, I had to cut out a piece of this to fit over a lot of this, like this rounded area. So you lay that on your stab once it's on there and push that up against it, and it should be perfectly flush on your stab and on the vertical fin, which this is, so that means that's level. Check both sides, make sure. Perfect. We are perfectly level. Now, this again is going to be hard to hold pressure on. I can get it in place, and then I can put a big piece of masking tape over the top and down and loop it under the edge of the wing. But it's going to be difficult to do that without moving it. So I think I'll use 5-minute epoxy on this and just hold this. I just don't know if I can get the tape on there without moving it, sliding it around or not. It'd be kind of hard. So I think I will use 5-minute and hold this in place till it dries, and then continue from there. So I'm going to mix up some glue, put this on here, and get this part done, and then we'll be back to hinge the rudder. Okay, we've got our glue mixed. I coated both sides of this again, and I got my Kleenexes handy. Normally I use paper towels, but got my Kleenexes handy. And we are going to line this up, center it with the fuselage, line the back end of it up. Okay, now I'm going to let that sit there while I put me some alcohol on here, and we're going to hold pressure on that while we wipe down this seam right here. Yeah, made that slide just a hair. Centered up again. Okay, we're good there. Now let me get another piece. Do the other side. Try to hold this good and tight and not put much pressure, but it doesn't take much. If I don't quit moving it, it doesn't. Okay, we are set. Not much glue sticking out on either side. We got it wiped off our seam. Got it pushed up against the fuselage. Everything, let's see, I need to go that way just a hair. Get the back of it centered up. Check with my gauge again. Alright, we are all even. So we're going to turn the camera off and let this glue set, and I will be back in just a minute. Okay, we're back. The glue's all set good on the horizontal stabilizer, and the vertical fin good and solid. I've started the hinges on the rudder, so we're going to go ahead and try to push them on in. Okay, we want to make sure the top of the rudder is perfectly level with the top of the vertical fin. Okay, it's all good. Now let's pull the pins out of there. Ouch! Poke myself in the finger. Okay. Make sure it's pushed in good. Alright. Let's see if I can get this around here. Same thing as the elevator and everything. Just going to soak those hinges about 6-8 drops. On the bottom here. Alright. Give those a second and then we'll turn it over. Do the other side. let that CA wick in there really good. Okay. We have rudder installed. Now, the next step is to put the control horns on there. Let me get my tweezers out. Get my screws out of there. So 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Let's see. Okay. 6 of those, 1 for elevator, 1 for the rudder. Get back down here to earth where you can see same thing as the ailerons as in part 1. This plane came with the holes pre-marked. They got pinholes there. We're just gonna hold this up here and make sure they've got them in the right spot. And as I explained to you on the ailerons and stuff, the center line of these holes in that control horn, that center line of those holes up and down needs to be directly in line with the gap in between your control surface right there. So it looks like they've got their holes lined up good. Let me get my drill out. Kind of put everything up, clean up in between spots. So, all right, we're gonna. They've got the hole almost all the way through. Just finish it up. Alrighty, now we will take this. Get my screwdriver back out. I'm gonna go ahead and start that in that a little bit so I don't drop it. I know you guys probably can't see at this angle. Make sure we get it in the hole. We'll thread that through till we see it sticking out the other side a little ways. Alright, let's put another one in this one. Ah, boy, I about poked a hole in the rudder. See how easy it is for your screwdriver to slip off and poke a hole in the covering? I've done it many a time. I keep a little scraps around for patching little holes like that. You can, if I did poke a hole in it, you can cut a little white circle and put it on there with your iron and never know the difference. But it's easy to do because you're putting pressure on this, and then if it jumps off of there, hit. Alright, one more. That one. This hole's not busted all the way through this control horn on the plastic, so there we go. Had a little coating of plastic over it. Oh, gosh dang it, I'm gonna poke a hole in this yet. It's so hard to get to these little bitty areas. I'm gonna have to hold my screw. I'll tell you what, this one has been cantankerous. Okay, got him started. If I can keep it from coming off there and poking a hole in it. Okay, now got your little cap that goes on the other side, the retainer. And we're gonna lay it over the tips I've got poking through there. Screw that on down. this rudder's thicker, so there wasn't as much screw sticking out as there was on the ailerons. I had to cut them off with a Dremel. This has got a little bit of a point. I'll smooth it down for sure. Okay, now the rudder, got the holes marked here, so we're going to go ahead and punch them through. I'm going to try something here. I've got, see if it's got good batteries in it. A little rechargeable or a little battery powered drill. This usually works really good for this kind of stuff. It's a General brand. Takes two AAA batteries. One thing is, these little heads are almost too small for those screws. Let's see if they'll go in there. Oh yeah, much easier. I don't know if you can, you probably can't see through my big hand, but that little drill is awesome for that. Just run it right through there. Now, let's see if we can start another one without poking a hole in the covering. Once it starts real easy in that plastic once you hold it. Alright, one more. Well, that one ain't poked through either on the back hole. Get it started. Okay, same thing, put our little plate on the other side, line that up. Be careful where you hold your fingers over there, because these screws come through, they'll poke you. And we'll just cinch those down like this. And then we'll take the big one, tighten them on down. Don't tighten these so tight that it crushes your control surface. In other words, if you tighten these down real tight, it will squish this control horn, the plastic part of it, right into your balsa. So just snug them good, and that's all it takes. Okay, tail feathers are all installed and ready for the linkage. But before we do the linkage, we're going to drop the servos in right quick. I'm trying to think how much time I've got on this section. I don't want to make it too long. Yeah, we'll go ahead. Let me get the servos and everything lined out and get them set, and we'll get ready to drop them in right quick and hook up the linkage, and then we'll end this segment with that. But I'll be right back. Let me get everything together. Okay, got everything together. Now, be sure and look in your manual and see which way the servo's set. They've got a elevator and rudder right here. The throttle will go in this hole, your elevator and rudder, and they've got the control horns pointed to the outer side of the plane. So we want to be sure and get them in there right before we fit our control horns to see which side we want to cut off. Pull these off. Alright, this is my elevator, so it will go, let me look, see where they've got. And they've also got the control head facing toward the front of the plane. So, I know this is my elevator. Got it plugged into my elevator slot. Let me turn the radio on. Turn the... Okay, receiver's on, everything. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to take our control horn, or not control horn, this is a servo horn, and we're going to center this on here with the splines as close as we can to 90 degree. That one's not too bad. Let's turn it around and see if the other side will be better. Yeah, the other side's, well, it's about the same. So we're going to have to sub trim just a little bit either way. Let's see, here's how it's going to lay. That one, see which one's the closest. That one's definitely closer. Okay, now be sure and remember which way it's going to lay. And we've got that on there. Now let's do the rudder. The rudder horn will face to the outside on this one. And let's see if we can get the splines. Well, that's pretty close. I don't think, yeah, the other way is real close. Try to get them as close to the 90 as you can. 90 degree, what I mean is the side of the servo and across here. You want a 90 degree is where you want that set. So get that as close as you can with your splines. That way you don't have to sub trim very much, just very little. Okay, now I'm going to take this one back off and do it first. It's the rudder. I'm going to put my quick connects on there. It holds just a little bit snug. A little bit of a water. We want this to spin freely, but we don't want any slack in it. Here we go. Now, let me get my little socket back out. My hammer. I put everything up a while ago. Alright. Here we go. Kind of magnetized. Set that on there. Tap that down good. If it feels snug, take this and just kind of torque it a little bit. Some needle nose to loosen it up. There we go. Nice and loose, but spins freely, but no tension on it. We don't want to put any extra tension on the servos than we have to. If you are going to build this plane to 3D width, which it will very well, then I would suggest using high torque digital metal geared servos. These are just standard, so they're not real fast, but I'm just going to fly this plane. The most I'll do with it, you know, some barrel rolls and whatever, inverted flat spin stuff, but you don't need, I mean, it'd be better if I'd have had the better servos, but you don't have to have for the way I'm going to fly it. But if you're going to 3D fly this thing, you definitely need to go with some high torque, I would say 75, 80 ounce torque servos that are digital and high speed, because when you're doing 3D, you want the control surfaces to move really quick. And for some of you that know what 3D flying is, you understand why they got to move so quick. The only thrust you're getting over the control surfaces, like when you're hovering, is from the prop. You're not moving through the air very fast, so you have to have a lot of movement and quick movement on those control surfaces to keep that thrust moving the airplane around the way you want it. So, okay, and we got that one. Let's put it back on here. Okay, let's put a screw in it. I'm kind of just an old-fashioned guy. I just like to fly to have fun. I don't have any desire to fly in any competitions. I don't care really to fly 3D. It's okay. I enjoy watching it. It fascinates me that people are that talented that can do that stuff really well, but I just don't have any desire to fly like that myself. Okay, we're going to go into sub-trim. We're going to go to rudder, and we're going to turn that till we get it perfect 90 degree. And see if you can see that moving. Okay, we're going to get that perfectly 90. That's about it right there. That's our rudder. Wait a minute. Okay, here's one thing we got to think about doing. The rudder. Right. It's going to have to be reversed. Before you sub-trim it, we need to reverse the switches. I forgot about that. Get on 0. Okay, let me go back to my list. Go to reverse. Go to rudder. Reverse it. Now we'll go back to sub-trim. Okay, this is going to set in here like that. The tubes inside the fuselage are actually going to cross. So in other words, this tube, this rod from here is going to cross over and go to the other side, and the rod from that side is going to cross over. They're crisscrossed inside the fuselage like that. So the rudder being in here this direction, then a right turn, the control horn is on the other side, so backwards will push the rudder to the right, and forward will pull it to the left. So we've got that set. Now we can go in and sub-trim it. It's real close, only had to go like 22 degrees. Okay, that one's set. Now the elevator will be on the other side, and look at it and see which way it's going to operate. Okay, it's on the other side. It's going to crisscross, go into the bottom. So the arm pushing back will cause the elevator to go up, and we're in the right position on that. We didn't have to reverse that. So pushing back on the rod will make the elevator go up. Pushing forward will make the elevator go down. So we've got them all set, got the screws in there, and I forgot to put the quick connect in it, but maybe I can do that while it's on the servo. If I can, I can take it back out. So there we go. Let me get my little dealie here. Alright, let's tap that on there. They make these quick connects that have a little threaded screw coming out of the bottom. You can put nuts on them. They're okay. Honestly, I don't care for them. I've had a nut come loose on one of those. These press-on clips, never had one of these come loose. So I prefer these kind with the press-on snap washers, or whatever you want to call them. I don't know what they're actually called, but once you press them on there, you can't get it back off. I mean, you can, but it'll ruin it. So it's made to where it won't come back off. Now we're just going to put our little screws in the quick connects temporarily. Okay, now we can turn our switches off. We can unplug our servos and lay the switch and everything to the side. Alright, this will be the rudder, so let me see if I can get you over here and show you what I'm doing. Alright, hopefully I can keep my big old hands out of the way for the most part. Oops, that's elevator, so that goes on the left side according to the book. I'm going to run my wires at the front because my receiver is going to go up here somewhere. I'm not sure yet exactly where, but get a hold of my wire. Okay, now I'm not going to bore you with the whole thing on both of these. I'm just going to do one. Okay, if you remember from part one, I told you to center your servos in the hole. You've got slack on each side, on each end. Slide it, well, each end is pretty snug, but the sides you have slack. Line those up, hold that good and snug while you drill your holes. And the reason for that is you don't want it touching the wood real solid, because that'll bring on more vibration. Vibration kills electronics. Now get your drill bit in the center of the hole. Drill them. Now I'm going to have to move my thumb up here. I don't want that to move and get away from my other holes. I have had them to where I've put a couple of, drill the first two holes and put the screws in, and then drill the other two. Okay, let's get this one in there. Actually, it didn't really matter about my wire for now because I'm going to take it back out. Alright, we're going to face them forward again. Okay, same thing. We're going to get our, we'll do the back ones first. Got the same amount of clearance on each side. Okay, now if you recall what we did on the where my other tub go? On the servos in the wing, we started the screws in to thread the wood. And there's 4. I need 4 and 4. We started the screws in the wood to thread the wood. Now I'm gonna have to get my silly wrenches back out. I can't remember. I want to say this was one of the red ones. I do believe. I think it's that one. Yep. Okay. Now what we're going to do, excuse me, and I have been so choked up this weekend. Let me zoom this back out. And I don't know, maybe that helped. I put some light on it, hopefully. Same thing we did on the ailerons. We're going to start the screw and this is going to be fun. I'm going to have to turn this up like this. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it good. But anyway, we are going to screw the screws into the hole and then back it out on all these holes, all 8 of them. We'll do the throttle servo later. Be sure and go all the way through and then back them back out, and then we're going to put thin CA in those holes to harden those threads. If you don't, sometimes the wood can soften up over time and they'll loosen up on you, and your servo will move, and that'll cause slack in your linkage. So always do this. Always screw these in, take them back out, put CA in the holes, let it dry for about 5 minutes or so, and then put your servos in. So anyway, I'm not going to bore you with this whole thing. I've got 3 of the holes drilled. We're going to put 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let that set a minute, give it about 3 more. I do about 3, let it set for just a second, and then about 3 more. And that will harden those threads in that wood, so that when we put the servos back in, they will stay really, really tight. Alright, I'm going to finish the rest of them now that you know how to do that, and won't bore you with stretching this out anymore, and we'll be back in just a minute and put them in. Okay, we CA'd all of our holes. Put the servos back in. I've already tightened this one. Now I'm going to tighten these down. When you cinch these down, don't cinch them down into that rubber. That rubber's there for a shock absorber. So all you want to do is tighten these to where they are just starting to squish into the rubber just a little bit, like right there. And this servo here is as tight as it can be. It's not moving. You don't have to just torque these things down and squish that rubber all the way to the floor. Just where that starts to tighten into the rubber, that's all you want. That lets it absorb shock better. So, okay, that one was a little snug, but boy, these are really tight after you put that CA in there. It really makes them tight and good. So, alright, now we've got those in. We'll temporarily lay the receiver in here and battery and turn it on when we put our linkage together and stick in there. So let me get the linkage and everything out. We'll get it ready to go and come back and we'll put that in. Okay, got our linkage out. This is your throttle linkage and tube right here. We'll lay it aside. Now I've already put this one on, but you be sure and put your rubber field tubing over the end of your clevis. Makes it easier. You can get it on there after you've threaded this on, but it makes it easier if you do it now. Screw these on just like the ailerons, where there's about 1/8 of an inch, not quite 1/8 of an inch sticking out. Got a burr or something there. I might have to grab this with the vice grips. Yeah, 1/16 to 1/8 of an inch of rod sticking into the clevis is what I like to do. Alright, make sure there's Loctite back where the nut goes. A couple pair of needle nose. You do not have to just torque these down and try to break them. Just torque them down and snug them really good. Loctite will say that they're not going anywhere. And we're going to lock these on down because we're doing our adjustments with quick connects and not having to unscrew this linkage. So let's put that up. Okay, now let me get this over here. And we're just going to kind of lay that battery and stuff up in there for right now. Let me get my radio on. Set it right here. And turn that on. Make sure everything binds up correctly. Alright, both lights are on the receiver and the satellite receiver, so we're good to go. And we're just going to kind of, let me grab the ends here. Alright, that one is our elevator. So we want it, elevator slot. And this one, wait a minute. No, that's rudder on that side. Keep getting mixed up because they're crossed inside. Okay, rudder, elevator. Alright, elevator. Okay, I did have it right. Gosh, very confusing. Okay. Alright, elevator pushing back. Rudder, right, we'll push back. Okay, we're good. Now we got those set. We're just going to kind of lay these in here where they don't get squished or flop around. Now, we're going to take our, it's the wrong one, but we'll get it here in a minute. We're going to take our set screws out of the deals. Let me get my right tools, doggone it. I believe it's that one right there. Yeah. Okay, take those out. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to run the rod from the elevator through the elevator tube. One thing they have done, they've really, on this model, they've really cut out some nice slots right here, real nice around the covering, and they did do a good job there. Alright, we're going to shove that through, and then until it comes through the other end. There we go. Now, you may have to get a hold of it with a pair of tweezers or needle nose. We're going to put it through our hole in our quick connect, okay? Now, we're going to slide that on through, making sure we're not going to jab any wires or anything. Now, I'm going to put this in the bottom hole because I want quite a bit of throw on this thing. We can always adjust it back later if we need to. Okay, alright, we got that one in there. Now let's do the rudder from the other side. Same thing, it's got a nice cutout hole. Start it in the tube, but just watch it when you pull it through up in here. Make sure you're not going to stab something. It's easier to get a hold of it with needle nose to guide it into that hole. Okay, now shove that on through. Let's turn it over here. Same thing, I want a lot of rudder throw, so I'm going to put it in the last inside hole. Remember, the longer your servo horns are and the shorter your control surface horns are, the more throw it's going to give you in your radio. You can get that one to snap down for some reason. There it goes. Okay, slide our rubber safety deal up there. Not too close. Okay, now there's two ways you can do this on the tail section. One, you can't have enough clamps, all sizes of clamps. One, you can put a clamp up here, and that's about as accurate as I've ever found too. It works good if you got a big clamp that covers enough of both surfaces. It kind of centered up and it just locks it right in there. Okay, so you can do that, or you can take cut you a couple pieces of square stock, about however long you need to completely cover all the way across this. Put one on top, one on the bottom, and either put a little clamp on them, or you can put rubber bands around each end, and that will also hold that flat. So if you don't have clamps and stuff, and you do have some flat sticks, just make sure they're not warped. Cut pieces. This one's warped a little bit. Make sure you get one that's straight, both pieces, and clip that on there. And you only have to do one side on this plane because the elevator halves are connected together. Now if you had a plane with two different elevators, separate servos, you'd have to do both of them. But you can just do that. Put a rubber band around each end or a little clamp, and that'll keep your elevator straight. I'm going to use my clamps. Get another big one out of here. I'm going to put one on each side of this thing to ensure that I keep it level. I'm also going to just take a look. It looks good to me. Nice and square, level. Now we're going to slide this back here out of the way, and now we're going to get our Loctite back out, and see if I can get this down here. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing. Put Loctite on our set screws. And I got the wrong tool again, of course. There we go. Now we're going to gently put that in there. Now remember, we've got our radio on, so it's locked down center. Now do this one. Always, I can't stress enough, always use Loctite on any metal to metal screws. Don't ever use red unless it's something you don't want to ever get loose, because you won't get it loose. You'll break the bolts. Use blue Loctite. And but always use them on any metal to metal except on an engine, a muffler engine. It doesn't do any good on there. You need to use lock washers on a muffler. The heat from the engine will deteriorate this and make it come loose anyway. So, all right, now we're going to hold on to our little square quick connect with a pair of needle nose, and we're going to cinch them on down good and snug. Now I guarantee you these are never going to come loose. When I go to take these loose for whatever reason, they're almost hard to pop loose. Never had one come loose. Alright, now you got your excess rod. We're going to leave about 1/4 of an inch just in case for some kind of rearranging or movement. Oh, I need my big, I forgot I can't hardly squeeze them with that. Get a hold of the loose end, snap that off. Oh, I love those things. They take no effort whatsoever. Okay, there we go. Now, before you operate your radio, be sure to remember to take the clamps off. Now, if we needed to, we could go in there and fine tune this with our radio, but we don't need to. So put the clamps up, get them out of the way. There you go, boys and girls. We got our tail section all done. This battery's getting low, but see, these servos aren't real fast. I may change them out later on to a little bit better. So we got right, left, up, and down. So I guessed everything right. We're good to go. They're fast enough for the way I fly. But this plane really could take a little bit hotter servos if you really want it to maneuver well. And like I say, do some 3D flying and stuff. Okay, boys and girls, there we go. We are completely done with the tail section. We've got the 2 servos mounted for that, and all we have the throttle one left to do, but we'll do that when we do the engine. We're going to end this segment right now. I hope I haven't gone over an hour. I hope it's less. But anyway, stay tuned for part 3. It'll probably be a week. I can only work on this on the weekends. I get home so late of a night after work, I'm just wore out. I don't feel like doing much, so I'll just work on this on the weekend. So today's Sunday. This will be the last thing I do, and we'll work on it again next weekend. I'll get some more videos up. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.